The only thing that we're interested in is putting money in your wallet. If you want to bet the fights, if you want to have a little bit of action, you are in the right place. With my partner, Ian Parker, I am Brett Okamoto.
We're ready to rock between our parlays, our props, our straight picks. It's time to make money. Let's go.
Welcome into the beautiful city of Toronto, which will play host to UFC 297 as the first pay-per-view event of 2024. And we are here to talk about all things from a gambling perspective. It's going down in Scotiabank Arena. Hello, everybody. I am Brett Okamoto, alongside my partner, as always, Ian Parker. And you've watched all of the interviews, you've watched the pre-shows, and now we're going to tell you how to make some cash on Saturday. How does it feel to be at your first pay-per-view of 2024?
Oh, it feels good. We've been waiting for this one. Good card, a lot of good lines. As the music says, let's go.
Yeah, really looking forward to this main event. It really took on a life of its own last month when these two went at each other at T-Mobile Arena. But before we get to breaking down this card, let's look back at how we started off the year. This happened at the Apex in Las Vegas, and we went 3-1 to start off 2024.
From a best bet standpoint, I'm really happy about that. Lone blemish, Ricky Simone. Did not expect Batista to be able to stop the takedowns, but Ankalaev Walker over 1.5 by 12 seconds. Old Faithful Jim Miller, easy peasy, and Summersberger Parsons over 1.5. We missed on that parlay by one leg, but the prop of the night at plus 330 Miller by sub. That was the way to go.
That's great. When you hit the prop of the night, it's worth even more than the parlay would have been. Let's take a look at this UFC 297 main card. Of course, you can find it on ESPN+. Sean Strickland taking on Dricus Du Plessis for the middleweight championship. Raquel Pennington, Mayra Bueno Silva for that vacant bantamweight championship. Mike Malott, who has got a lot of hype as of late, will take on Neil Magny. Chris Curtis, Marc-Andre Barriault, and Arnold Allen, Movsar Evloev, rounding out this five-fight main card. And as we always do, let's go to the main event. I mentioned it earlier, last month, there is a little preview of what we might see on Saturday, of course. Sean Strickland going after Dricus in the stands at UFC 296, but they have been all friendly smiles here in Toronto. It seems like they really made up on what happened in Toronto, and now they're promising a fight to the death, actually, I think is what Sean Strickland proposed yesterday. From a betting perspective, I'm very, very interested to hear your thoughts on this, because I feel like this one has the MMA community a bit split. I hear a lot of support for both sides of these guys. Which side are you on?
I'm going, I guess you can call him an underdog still. He's sitting at plus 100 right now. I'm going with Dricus Du Plessis here. First off, what they fought in the stands, he wasn't phased. I know that's not really for anything, but it's interesting. He's 6-0. He's got 5 finishes. What I've seen over him over his last X amount of fights is improvement, evolution. His performance against Robert Whittaker was nothing short of masterful. Now, the question's going to be, is cardio going to be an issue for him if he can't get Strickland out in rounds 1 and 2? Because, look, Strickland does not get tired, and that's one of the things that makes Sean Strickland who he is. However, his explosiveness, his bull rushes, they're chaotic, but they're controlled. He's very awkward, which throws a lot of guys off. And if Sean cannot dictate the pace, can't dictate the narrative, I think he's going to be on his back foot, and I don't think he can counter his way to a win. Du Plessis has no problem making the weight. He looks good. He got Sean Strickland to ask him to not speak about certain things. That's just very unlike Sean Strickland. I think we're going to hear and new by the end of the night. I'm going with the dog in DDP.
Interesting. And just from a value standpoint, I mean, you said there that you are taking technically the underdog here, although, like I said, it kind of feels like an even fight the way we're discussing it. It's an interesting scenario when you trying to talk about value, because both of these guys are coming off of ridiculously unprecedented performances. I mean, Sean Strickland beating Israel Adesanya, and then Drake is doing what he did against Robert Whittaker, both upsets, massive upsets, and especially the way in which they did it. So is there any value, or do you think, had we seen this fight a year ago, the odds would have been basically what they are now as well?
Yes and no, if that's a little bit of a cop-out. But look, if you want to get greedy and you don't want to play the underdog, but you do like Du Plessis, by submission at that plus 500 number, he did submit Darren Till. Again, not the same wrestling as Strickland, but he's a very underrated grappler. He could drop Strickland, jump on his back, and get the choke. I think this is going to be DDP's night. But if you go Strickland, I think he could probably win by a decision.
Okay. Well, before we get on to the co-main event, we're going to take a look at the middleweight division, because it is the first pay-per-view of 2024. We're going to take a look at some odds, some future odds that you can pick up at ESPN Bet if you are so inclined. And these are the odds to finish the year as the middleweight champion. And how about that? Khamzat Chimaev is the favorite, which I guess is not shocking, but there's a guy that, doesn't really fight all that frequently and did not look great in his last one, but he is still a significant favorite over the likes of Israel Adesanya, Sean Strickland. Any of those names stand out to you, Ian?
Well, look, if you're looking at best odds and I look at that list, I'm jumping all over Khamzat Chimaev at plus 100. I think he's one fight away from a title shot. And then you got to look at who would he defend against. I'm not kidding you. I think December 2024, I think we see Khamzat Chimaev versus Bo Nickel for the belt.
Interesting call. Yeah, I know that a lot of people have that matchup circled with one that we think we'll see eventually. Let's go to this co-main event. It's at 135 pounds. Raquel Pennington versus Mayra Bueno Silva, who Bueno Silva comes in as the favorite, minus 160 against Pennington, who comes back at plus 135. Your thoughts on this fight?
A lot of people I'm seeing online, they like Silva, and I get it, but I'm not going that way. Maybe I'm on this island by myself. I'm going with Rocky Pennington here. Look, with Silva, there's just too many question marks for me. The Holly Holm fight, round one, there was a lot of nothing. Then she caught her in a ninja choke, but we're getting Holly Holm on the downhill part of her career. Prior to that, it was Lena Landsberg, Steffi Egger, and Huanan Wu. I'm sorry, all of them had losing records fighting Mayra Silva. Rocky's fought everybody. She's only been finished one time in the UFC. It was to Amanda Nunes in the 5th round. That's fine. Everyone gets finished by Amanda Nunes. She's been subbed one time in her 23-fight career to Kat Zingano back in 2012. So for those who think Silva's just going to sub her like this, no. I think Rocky weathers an early storm, gets away from the power. And I think she gets this win. I'll go out on a limb and say by decision. But I think the boxing, the cardio, and that clinch game is going to be her Achilles heel for Silva.
Okay, well, we'll do what we did with the middleweight division, and that is take a look at who will finish the year wearing this belt around their waist. And this one's an interesting, right? Because you got Juliana Pena, who's sort of right there in terms of we expect her to get the crack at the winner here. And some pretty even odds here, not a major favorite like there is in the Khamzat Chimaev situation. And look at Miesha Tate down there, plus 5,000. Amanda Nunes, stranger things have happened than someone coming back out of retirement. Any of those stick out to you?
Listen, we're probably going to catch some flack for this, but I welcome it. Juliana Pena, I'm not picking you. I think it will be Amanda Nunes. She's going to be here, plus 1,800. I think she's here to scout out the winner of both. If not, I think a flyer on Miesha Tate makes sense. People are going to be like, oh, what's he talking about? I'll tell you why. If she goes out and fights someone like Holly Holm, maybe in June, July. After that, the only person ahead of her is Irene Aldana. If she beats her, December, maybe a Juliana Pena versus a Miesha Tate. Miesha's got the name. That division lacks depth. Plus 5,000? It could happen.
Hey, I can see it. You're not saying it's the most likely outcome, but you're saying at plus 5,000, it might be worth.
Is there. The
might
path
be
is
worth
there.
dropping a little something on it. And I misspoke earlier. Those are not being offered right now at ESPN Bet. Those were hypothetical odds. So thank you for ESPN. Thank you to ESPN Bet for supplying us with those. Let's move on to the welterweight division. Another interesting one, man. Neil Magny taking on Mike Malott. As I mentioned earlier, Mike Malott getting a lot of support here, especially obviously in Canada. He is being looked at as potentially the guy to take the reins and really get this country maybe a championship belt back, taking on an old faithful, Neil Magny, who has the most wins in welterweight history.
His nickname's got to become the litmus test at some point, because that's what he's here for at welterweight. And listen, he doesn't mind playing that role, and sometimes I think it's a compliment to someone like him. Look, Mike Malott, we've seen very, very good. Striking, the submission game. Neil Magny is extremely durable. He is a very good fighter. I think there's going to be a lot of cage time where Neil can hold him there, kind of get away from that power. I'm going to get a little creative. Let's go Malott to win over 1.5 at plus 150.
Okay, so a pick on the favorite there, but a little bit more specific to get the odds down a bit. And then we're moving on to Chris Curtis, who is a teammate and friend of Sean Strickland. He will be taking on Marc-Andre Barriault. What do you think of this matchup here, a Canadian against the non-Canadian?
A lot of people like Curtis in this fight. I'm worried for him because he kind of sits back on that back foot. He counter strikes, but he waits too long. That first round, he usually doesn't even fight. Marc-Andre Barriault's going to come forward. He's going to push the pace. Both durable guys for the most part, over 2.5 rounds, minus 160. I think we see all 3 rounds as well.
Okay, and then before we round out the card between Arnold Allen and Movsar Evloev, we do want to take a look at the featherweight rankings because this fight could absolutely have a massive impact at 145 pounds. Evloev has been, nothing short of remarkable. He just hasn't kind of gotten those big fights yet to get up ahead, and that's why you see he's a minus 190 favorite here against Arnold Allen, who has had some of those big fights, and if he gets a big win here, he could be looking at potentially a title shot this year. What do you think of this 145-pound matchup?
I love Movsar minus 170. I'm still comfortable at minus 190. It shows that the public is understanding of the style here. Look, Allen's coming off a really one-sided loss to Max Holloway. We don't know what that's going to do to someone coming off that first loss in a long time, and Movsar's got that. He just has that style, that grind, and to even top that, I'm going to go with by Parker's prop for UFC 297, Evloev to win by decision against Arnold Allen. I think this is going to be a grapple fest wrestling for Evloev and unfortunate for Allen.
Okay, so we can go from minus 190 to minus 145 if we take it by decision. Evloev there at 145 pounds. Let's move on to the UFC 297 prelim picks. I'll let you rapid fire through those as always. Tell us where we're going on the prelims.
Well, look, guys, as you can see, you can take a look at my prelim picks here. We got something for every single fight on the card. However, there is one I'm going to focus on. Charles Jourdain also was originally minus 180, skyrocketed to minus 220, so I can't just take him money line. You guys know I don't love going to minus 200. However, I think this is a great matchup for him and Sean Woodson. I'm going to take as my prop of the night Jourdain by submission and plus 600. We've seen him win by guillotine against other grapplers that are better than him. We've seen Woodson get dropped, leave that neck out there. Jourdain by sub at plus 600. Long shot prop of the night.
I'll tell you what, this is interesting because you don't see too many huge favorites on there. There's only 2 of them bigger than 2 to 1. So where are we going with the parlay? How are we putting together the parlay for this one?
Not happy I missed it last week. I was 1 away from starting the year off hot. We're going to get it on this one. Brad Katona, I think he is better than Armfield everywhere it goes. This was going to be a best bet of mine. It still is going to be. Little spoiler alert there because that line keeps going up, which bothers me. With Jourdain, with Jazz Davicius, we're going to get plus 163 on the all-Canadian parlay.
All right, an all-Canadian parlay. I love that. And then the best bets that did go 3-1 last week. Let's stay hot at UFC 297 in Toronto. Where are we going with the best bets?
All right, let's get started. You know what? Magny Malott, I am going to make that a best bet. I think Mike Malott is going to be tested here with Magny's durability. I think he wins, but I think if he does get it done, it's going to be at the end of second, early third round, and we're getting plus 150 on that. Curtis Barriault over 2.5 rounds. Listen, we've seen Barriault go all 3. We know Curtis is a decision machine. As long as Barriault does not get caught with that left hook, we're going to see all 3 rounds. Evloev money line. Katona. Oh, I'm going to get a little flack for that one, minus 220. It was originally minus 200, but guys, I'm so confident we're staying there. CD, listen, on the Contender Series, he looked great. His opponent just came in 4 pounds over. And last but not least, Johan Linnaeus. He is fighting someone in Sam Patterson who has no chin, coming up in weight, sticks it out there. Johan's got some serious power. Let's go.
All right, we started off last year at the UFC Fight Night. I'm sorry, we started off last week with the UFC Fight Night. We didn't have a long shot parlay, so we didn't force it. It is back for this one. What is the long shot parlay for 297?
We hit the long shot prop. I stayed away. I didn't see anything. This one, I see something here. I like Duplessis. I like Pennington. And I think Marc-Andre Barriault with his volume could be there at plus 1,095. We're not going crazy, but I think these are 3 live dogs if you consider Duplessis a dog. Let's go. Imagine we go 1 for 1 to start the year. Long shot parlay. I would love nothing more. Let's go.
Heck yeah. 11 to 1 odds there. We only need 3 things to happen. I do. I like that long shot parlay to start off the year. Thank you so much for watching UFC Best Bets. This was a fun show. Always fun to do it in person in Toronto. Looking forward to this UFC 297 main card. You can find the prelims at 8 p.m. on ESPN. Check those out. Thank you for checking out the show, and we will see you in 2 weeks, off week next week, but then we'll be right back here for UFC Best Bets. Take care.